Do you feel it? That quiet tension in your soul when you think about money, a strange inner conflict. On one hand, you desire freedom, security, the ability to provide for those you love and to experience the richness of life without constraint. But on the other hand, there's a whisper, a nagging voice of guilt, a feeling that to want wealth is somehow unspiritual, that it's greedy, materialistic, a betrayal of your deeper values, and so you're caught, trapped between a world that screams you need more to be happy and a spirit that tells you attachment is the root of all suffering. This conflict is the single greatest block to true prosperity. It's a war waged within, and it's a war you cannot win by fighting harder. The truth is, you have been sold a lie, a profound misconception about the very nature of abundance. You've been taught that it is something outside of you, something to chase, to acquire, to earn, to win. But this is the path of endless striving, and it will only deepen the struggle you feel inside. If you are ready to stop chasing and start attracting, to stop fighting and start aligning, then let this audiobook be your map. We are about to embark on an alchemical journey, not of turning lead into gold in a furnace, but of transforming the leaden beliefs within your consciousness into the pure gold of effortless prosperity. And if you wish to continue this journey of alchemical transformation with us, ensure you've subscribed to our channel. Our work together is only just beginning. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Great Misconception, Chasing Abundance as an External Prize. Begin our journey by dismantling the foundation upon which most of our financial suffering is built. It's a foundation so deeply ingrained in our culture, so subtly woven into the fabric of our upbringing that we rarely even think to question it. It is the belief that abundance is an external prize, a thing, a number in a bank account, a collection of assets, a status symbol to be acquired. From the moment we are old enough to understand, we are taught to look outside ourselves for validation, for security, for happiness. Good grades lead to a good college, which leads to a good job, which leads to a good salary. Each step is a rung on a ladder, and at the top of that ladder, we are promised, lies success, abundance. The entire model is predicated on acquisition, on getting, on achieving. We are conditioned to believe that our current state is one of lack, and that through sufficient effort, struggle, and hustle, we can bridge the gap and finally arrive at a state of having. It's a race, and the finish line is always just a little further ahead. Get the promotion, buy the house, hit the 7-figure mark, then you'll be abundant, then you'll be worthy, then you can finally rest. But does it ever truly work that way? Think about it. Have you ever achieved a financial goal you once desperately wanted, only to find the feeling of satisfaction was fleeting? The excitement lasted a day, maybe a week, before your mind simply set a new, higher goal. The finish line moved. The feeling of not enough crept back in, perhaps even stronger than before. This is the cruel joke of the acquisition mindset. It's a horizon you can never reach, because the game is designed not for you to win, but for you to keep playing, to keep chasing. I remember speaking with a client, a brilliant entrepreneur who had built a company from the ground up. By all external measures, he was the epitome of success. He had the car, the house, the accolades, but when he sat in my office, his voice was filled with a quiet desperation. He told me, "Elias, I feel like a fraud. I wake up every morning with a pit in my stomach, terrified that I'm going to lose it all. I've acquired everything I ever wanted, but I've never felt so poor in my life." His problem wasn't in his bank account. It was in the story he told himself about money. His entire identity was wrapped up in the act of getting. He didn't know how to simply be. He had won the race, but he couldn't stop running. This is the spiritual dilemma at the heart of the matter. When you view abundance as an external thing, you inadvertently place your sense of peace, worth, and security in something that is, by its very nature, transient. Markets fluctuate. Jobs can be lost. Fortunes can change. By tying your inner state to the outer world, you are building your house on sand, And for the spiritually open individual, this creates a profound and painful conflict. Your intuition, your soul, tells you that true peace is found within. Spiritual teachings from every tradition remind us that attachment to the material world is a source of suffering. Yet you live in a world that demands you participate in the material game. You have bills to pay, families to support, and dreams you wish to fund. So what happens? Guilt, shame. You feel guilty for wanting money because you've been taught that wanting is a form of attachment. You fear that if you become wealthy, you will become one of them, materialistic, disconnected, spiritually bankrupt. You might even subconsciously believe that there is virtue in struggle, that poverty is somehow more pious than prosperity. This is one of the most pervasive and destructive limiting beliefs in the spiritual community. It's the idea that to be close to God, you must be far from money. This creates an energetic civil war within you. Your conscious mind says, "I want financial freedom." But your subconscious mind, steeped in years of spiritual conditioning and guilt, whispers, "No, you don't. It's not safe. You're not worthy. It's not who you are." And which mind do you think wins? The subconscious mind, every single time. It is the powerhouse, the operating system, and so you sabotage yourself. You miss opportunities. You undercharge for your services. You receive an unexpected sum of money, and an unexpected bill appears just as quickly to take it away. You are pushing the gas and the brake at the same time. You are trying to attract wealth, while simultaneously broadcasting an energetic signal that you are repelled by it, that you feel unworthy of it, that you judge it as bad. The universe, which only ever responds to your dominant energetic vibration, becomes confused. It receives mixed signals. And a mixed signal will always default to your deepest, most ingrained belief. It will default to the state of lack you are trying so desperately to escape, because that is the state your subconscious mind has defined as safe and spiritually pure. Do you see the trap? The chase itself is what pushes your goal further away. The more desperately you try to acquire wealth from a place of lack and guilt, the more you reinforce the very consciousness of lack and guilt within you. You are screaming at the universe, "I don't have enough!" And the universe, in its infinite and impartial wisdom, simply says, "Yes, you don't have enough." As you believe, so it is. Breaking this cycle requires a radical shift in perspective. It requires that you stop participating in the race altogether. It requires you to withdraw your attention from the external prize and turn it inward, to the source of all creation. It requires you to understand that abundance is not something you get. It is something you allow. It is not something you acquire. It is something you become, and that is the foundation of our work together. In the next chapter, we will explore this profound alternative. We will redefine abundance not as an object of desire, but as an innate state of being. We will introduce the core metaphor that will guide our entire journey, the principle of alchemy. We will begin the process of turning the lead of this great misconception into the pure gold of spiritual and financial truth. Chapter 2. The Alchemical Shift. Redefining abundance as a state of being. Now that we have exposed the flawed foundation of the acquisition mindset, we can begin to build a new one, a foundation of granite rooted in timeless spiritual principle. This is where the true alchemy begins. The ancient alchemists sought to transmute base metals, like lead, into noble metals, like gold. But the wisest among them knew that this was merely an outer metaphor for a much deeper inner process. The true alchemy was not about changing metals. It was about changing consciousness. It was about the transformation of the limited, fearful, egoic self into the enlightened, expanded, divine self. This is the exact same process we must undertake with our relationship to wealth. We must stop trying to manipulate the outer world, the lead of our financial circumstances, and instead focus on transmuting the inner world, the consciousness that creates those circumstances. So let's propose a new definition, a radical reframe. What if abundance is not a quantity of money? What if it is a quality of consciousness? What if it is not about having, but about being? Let this sink in for a moment. Abundance is a state of being. It is an inner posture, an energetic frequency, a way of experiencing reality. It is the conscious awareness of your infinite connection to Source, the wellspring of all that is. It is the deep cellular knowing that you are provided for, that you live in a generous universe, and that lack is an illusion created by a mind focused on separation. A person in a state of abundant consciousness can feel prosperous with $100 in their pocket, while a person in a state of lack consciousness can feel destitute with millions in the bank. We all know people like this. The friend who, despite financial challenges, is always generous, always optimistic, always seems to find a way. And the wealthy relative who is perpetually anxious, stingy, and terrified of losing what they have. Who is truly the more abundant? The one who embodies abundance as a state of being is a magnet. The one who chases abundance as an external object is a sieve. When you embody abundance as your natural state, money and resources cease to be things you desperately need to get from the outside world. Instead, they become things that flow through you from the inside out. They become a natural, effortless expression of the value, love, and purpose that you are radiating into the world. You are no longer a beggar with a cup held out. You are a channel through which the universe expresses its infinite generosity, and this single shift solves the great spiritual dilemma we spoke of earlier. The guilt dissolves. The conflict disappears. Why? Because you are no longer wanting money. You are no longer attached to the outcome. Your focus is not on the acquisition of a material thing, but on the cultivation of a divine state. Your work is inner work. You are tending to the garden of your own consciousness, and the money, the opportunities, the resources, they are simply the fruit that the garden naturally and effortlessly produces. There is no spiritual conflict in being a vibrant, thriving, beautiful garden. It is your nature. This is the alchemical metaphor in its purest form. The lead is the consciousness of lack. It's heavy, dense, and dark. It is the belief that I am not enough. There isn't enough. I am separate. I must struggle to survive. This consciousness produces an outer reality that reflects these beliefs. Debt, anxiety, missed opportunities, and a constant feeling of being behind. The gold is the consciousness of abundance. It is light, radiant, and valuable. It is the knowing that I am a divine expression of Source. I am infinitely supplied. I am worthy of all good. I create with joy and ease. And this consciousness produces an outer reality that reflects these beliefs. Flow, synchronicity, unexpected windfalls, and a deep sense of peace and security, regardless of the number in your bank account. Your job is not to find gold. Your job is to become gold. Let's make this more practical. How does this shift feel in your body, in your daily life? The consciousness of lack feels like contraction. It's a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach. It's the feeling of holding on, of hoarding, of fearing loss. When you make decisions from this state, you are playing defense. You're trying not to lose. You take the safe job instead of following your passion. You hoard your money in a low-yield savings account because you're terrified of the stock market. You undercharge for your services because you're afraid the client will say no. Every decision is filtered through the lens of fear. The consciousness of abundance, on the other hand, feels like expansion. It's an openness in your heart, a relaxation in your body. It is the feeling of flow, of generosity, of trust. When you make decisions from this state, you are playing offense. You are playing to win, not in a competitive sense, but in the sense of expressing your fullest potential. You invest in yourself and your business. You give freely and joyfully, knowing that you are part of an infinite cycle of giving and receiving. You set your prices based on the true value you provide, trusting that the right clients will joyfully pay. Every decision is filtered through the lens of love and possibility. And I know what some of you might be thinking, but Elias, this sounds nice in theory, but I have real bills, I have real debt. I can't just feel abundant and expect my problems to disappear. And you are right. This is not about spiritual bypassing. It's not about ignoring your reality. It is about fundamentally changing the energetic engine that creates your reality. Your current financial situation is simply a lagging indicator. It is a physical printout of the consciousness you were holding weeks, months, and years ago. It is old news. To change the printout, you don't scribble on the paper. You must change the data in the computer. The inner work is the most practical, most powerful financial work you will ever do. It is the root. Budgeting, investing, earning, these are the branches. Most financial advice focuses entirely on the branches, and that's why it so often fails for spiritually minded people. You can prune the branches all you want, but if the root is poisoned with beliefs of unworthiness and lack, the tree will never bear healthy fruit. So the question becomes, how do we begin this transmutation? How do we purify the leaden consciousness and allow the gold to emerge? It begins with understanding the most fundamental principle of creation, the one that governs all of reality. It begins with identity. In our next chapter, we will explore how your perception of yourself is the single most powerful determinant of your financial reality, and how to begin consciously crafting an identity that is in perfect alignment with the abundance that is your birthright. Chapter 3. The Blueprint of Consciousness. Your identity as the source of wealth, if abundance, is a state of being. Then the single most important question you can ever ask yourself is this: who do I believe myself to be? Your identity, the collection of beliefs, stories, and assumptions you hold about yourself, is the blueprint from which your entire life is constructed. It is the master program running in the subconscious mind, and it dictates with unwavering precision what you are allowed to experience. You can never outperform your self-image for long. Your outer world is, and always will be, a perfect mirror of your inner identity. Think of it like a thermostat. Let's say your financial identity thermostat is set to struggling artist. You might get a lucky break, a big commission, a grant that temporarily raises the temperature in the room. For a moment you feel prosperous, but because the thermostat is still set to struggling, the system will unconsciously kick in to cool the room back down. You'll spend the money recklessly. An unexpected crisis will emerge. You will find a way, unconsciously, to return to the familiar temperature of struggle, because that is who you believe you are. Conversely, consider someone whose financial identity thermostat is set to millionaire. They might suffer a business loss or a market downturn that temporarily lowers the temperature. But their system will not tolerate this. Their identity will force them to think differently, to see opportunities others miss, to take actions that are aligned with being a millionaire. They will inevitably and often quickly restore their wealth. It is not because they are luckier or smarter. It is because their identity will not allow them to be anything else. They don't just have wealth. They are wealthy. Most of us have never consciously chosen our financial identity. It was given to us. It's a patchwork quilt stitched together from the beliefs of our parents. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. The limitations imposed on us by society, the pain of past financial failures, and the spiritual guilt we've internalized. We are walking around with a thermostat set by others, wondering why we can't create the climate we desire. The alchemical work here is to consciously and deliberately melt down the old identity and forge a new one. This is the very foundation of abundance consciousness. It's not about pretending to be something you're not. It's about remembering who you truly are at your core. You are not a struggling artist or a person in debt or someone who just gets by. You are a unique, individual expression of the infinite creative intelligence of the universe. You are a channel for divine energy. Your birthright is not lack and limitation. It is expansion, joy, and infinite supply. Your true identity is one of limitless potential. The other labels are just costumes you've been wearing, and you can choose to take them off. So how do we do this? It's a process, a journey of reprogramming the subconscious mind. It happens through two primary forces, the words you speak and the feelings you embody. Let's start with words. The statements you repeat to yourself, both silently and aloud, are programming commands for your subconscious. The most powerful of these are I am statements. Whatever follows the words I am is a direct instruction to the universe about the identity you are choosing to embody. For years, you have likely been running a program of negative I am statements without even realizing it. I'm so broke. I'm terrible with money. I'm always in debt. Each one is an affirmation. Each one is a brick in the wall of your financial prison. You are literally commanding your reality to conform to that identity. The first step is awareness. For the next week, I want you to become a detective of your own thoughts and words. Carry a small notebook or use an app on your phone. Every time you catch yourself thinking or saying a negative statement about yourself or your financial situation, write it down. No judgment. Just observe. At the end of the week, look at your list. This is the blueprint you have been handing to your subconscious mind. Is it any wonder it has built the house you are currently living in? The second step is replacement. You must now consciously and deliberately feed your mind a new set of instructions. This is where affirmations come in, but we must use them with a crucial understanding. Simply repeating, I am wealthy, when your entire being is screaming, no, you're not, can create even more internal conflict. The subconscious mind rejects statements that are too far from its current reality. The key is to create affirmations that feel believable, that feel like a gentle expansion rather than a jarring lie. These are what I call bridge affirmations. Instead of I am wealthy, you might start with, I am in the process of becoming a master of my financial life. I am open and willing to receive more abundance. I am worthy of feeling financially secure and at peace. Every day, I'm getting better and better at managing and attracting money. These statements are undeniably true. They bypass the resistance of the ego and begin to gently retrain the subconscious mind. They build a bridge from where you are to where you want to be. The second, and even more powerful force is feeling. Your subconscious mind does not primarily speak the language of words. It speaks the language of emotion. You can repeat affirmations all day long, but if you do not feel the truth of them in your body, they will have little effect. This is the true meaning of acting as if. It is not about buying things you can't afford to pretend you're rich. It is about feeling as if. It's about generating the emotional state of your desired reality, here and now. What would it feel like to be completely free of financial worry? Not just the thought, but the actual physical sensation. Would you feel relief? A lightness in your shoulders? A sense of calm in your gut? A feeling of expansive joy in your heart? Your task is to practice generating this feeling, independent of your current circumstances. This is the ultimate creative act. You are no longer letting your outer world dictate your inner state. You are using your inner state to dictate your outer world. This is how you shift from being a creature of circumstance to a creator of circumstance. I had a client once, a wonderful woman named Sarah, who was a healer. She gave so much to her clients, but was constantly struggling financially. We discovered her core identity was the starving servant. She believed that to be a true healer, she had to sacrifice her own well-being. We worked on this for weeks. She wrote out her new identity. I am a prosperous and powerful healer. The more I am supported, the more people I can serve. She repeated it daily. But the real shift came during a visualization exercise. I asked her to imagine a day in her life as this prosperous healer. I told her not to focus on the money, but on the feeling. She closed her eyes, and after a few moments, a single tear rolled down her cheek. I asked her what she was feeling. She said, permission. I feel permission to receive. I feel the weight of the world lifting off my shoulders. I feel worthy. That feeling was the alchemical solvent. It began to dissolve the old leaden identity of the starving servant. Within 3 months, her practice had doubled. She wasn't working harder. She was simply being a different person, and the world rearranged itself around her new identity. This is the work. It is the conscious, deliberate cultivation of a new self-concept. It requires diligence and patience. You are redirecting a river that has been flowing in the same direction for decades. It won't happen overnight. But with every new thought you choose, every new feeling you embody, you are carving a new channel. You are laying the foundation for a reality where abundance is not something you chase, but something that emanates from the very core of who you are. But what happens when we try to do this work and we are met with a wall of resistance? A deep primal feeling of unworthiness and guilt? This is the shadow that must be faced. In our next chapter, we will venture into this territory to heal the spiritual poison that keeps so many from claiming their birthright. Chapter 4. The Poison of Unworthiness, Healing the Spiritual Guilt of Desire. We have established that abundance is a state of being, and that this state is built upon the foundation of your identity. But for so many spiritually minded people, there is a deep hidden layer of programming that sabotages any attempt to build a new identity of worth and prosperity. It is the poison of unworthiness. It is the spiritual guilt of desire. This is perhaps the most insidious and powerful money block of all because it masquerades as virtue. It disguises itself as humility, as piety, as non-attachment. It's the quiet, nagging voice in the back of your mind that whispers, "You're not good enough," that you don't deserve it, the one that makes your stomach clench when you look at a high price tag. It is the belief that to desire wealth is a spiritual failing. Let's be very clear, there is nothing spiritual about lack. There is no virtue in suffering. Poverty does not make you more holy. A sick, starving, and struggling version of you serves no one. The universe is not a stingy bookkeeper, and God does not reward self-flagellation. The universe is infinitely abundant. Look at nature. It's riotously, profligately, shamelessly abundant. A single tree produces thousands of seeds. The oceans teem with life beyond measure. The stars are scattered across the cosmos in numbers we cannot even comprehend. Creation is an act of extravagant, overflowing generosity. Lack is not our natural state. It is an artificial condition created by a consciousness of separation. To desire is not a sin. Desire is the engine of evolution. It is the impulse of life itself, seeking fuller expression through you. The desire for more money is not at its core a desire for pieces of paper or numbers on a screen. It is the desire for what you believe money will bring you: more freedom, more security, more joy, more peace, more ability to contribute, more life. The desire for more life is the most natural and spiritual impulse there is. So where does the guilt come from? It comes from a misunderstanding of the principle of non-attachment. Spiritual masters throughout history have warned against attachment to the material world. But they were not warning against the enjoyment of the material world. They were warning against the identification with it. They were telling you not to build your house on sand, not to place your sense of self-worth and happiness in things that are transient. It is one thing to own a beautiful house. It is another thing entirely for the house to own you. Non-attachment is not about renouncing the world. It is about renouncing the fear of losing the world. It is the freedom to fully enjoy and appreciate the gifts of the material realm without being enslaved by them. Ironically, the person who is most attached to money is not the joyful millionaire, but the anxious person who is terrified of it, who thinks about it constantly from a place of fear and lack. Their entire reality is dictated by it. That is the definition of attachment. True financial freedom is a state of non-attachment. It is knowing so deeply that it becomes a part of your breath, that your worth is not in your bank account. Your security is not in your portfolio. Your value as a soul is inherent, unconditional, and absolute. When you know this, you become free. You are free to create wealth because you are no longer afraid of it. You are free to enjoy it because you know it doesn't define you. And you are free to lose it because you know that who you are can never be lost. This is the state we are aiming for. But to get there, we must heal the wounds of unworthiness that keep us trapped in guilt. Unworthiness often stems from childhood. It can come from parents who, with the best of intentions, taught you that your value was conditional on your performance. It can come from religious teachings that emphasize sin and inherent brokenness. It can come from societal messages that tell you that you are not thin enough, smart enough, successful enough. These messages create energetic patterns or money blocks in your system. They are constellations of fear, shame, and guilt that vibrate at a very low frequency. And because like attracts like, this frequency of unworthiness can only attract experiences that validate it. It attracts debt, financial struggle, and relationships where you feel undervalued. Healing this requires us to bring these shadows into the light of our conscious awareness. It requires courage and compassion. I know this might challenge everything you've been taught. It's okay to feel a sense of resistance. If this idea makes you uncomfortable, good. That means we're touching on a truth that needs to be healed. This discomfort is the first sign of a potential breakthrough. So the practical work is this: you must begin to question the source of your guilt. When you think about having a large sum of money and that familiar pang of guilt or anxiety arises, pause. Don't push it away. Don't ignore it. Get curious about it. Ask yourself, whose voice is this really? Is it your mother's? Your father's? A teacher's? A pastor's? Very often you will find that the voice of guilt is not your own. It is an echo from the past. What am I afraid would happen if I were truly wealthy? Dig deep here. Are you afraid you would become a bad person? That your friends would abandon you? That you would lose your motivation? That you would be judged? These fears are the gatekeepers of your current reality. What is the underlying belief here? Try to distill the feeling down to a core belief. It will likely be a variation of "I'm not worthy," "I don't deserve it," or "it's not safe for me to have money." Just the act of witnessing these beliefs without judgment begins to dissolve their power over you. You are taking them out of the darkness of the subconscious and exposing them to the light of your conscious mind. You are realizing, oh, this is just a story. This is just a program. This isn't the absolute truth of who I am. This is deep inner work, and it's some of the most important work you will ever do. It's the foundation for everything that follows. I truly believe that if this message is resonating with you, it's because you were meant to hear it. And if you know someone else who is struggling with this same spiritual conflict, someone who feels trapped between their purpose and their poverty, consider sharing this audiobook with them. Sometimes a single new idea can be the key that unlocks a cage they didn't even know they were in. In our next chapter, we will move from diagnosis to prescription. We will introduce a powerful and practical ritual, what I call the forgiveness ledger, designed specifically to target and heal the deep-seated shame and guilt around money that we have just uncovered. It's time to stop analyzing the wound and begin to truly cleanse it. Chapter 5. The Forgiveness Ledger, a sacred ritual to release money. Shame awareness is the first step, but it is not the last. To truly heal the deep wounds of financial shame and guilt, we need more than just intellectual understanding. We need a practice, a ritual. We need a way to communicate with the subconscious mind in its own language, the language of symbol, emotion, and ceremony. This is why I want to share with you one of the most powerful and transformative exercises I have ever given to my clients. I call it the Forgiveness Ledger. It is a sacred ritual designed to bring your financial shadows into the light and formally, consciously, and emotionally release them. It's an act of profound self-compassion that can dissolve years of accumulated shame and reset your energetic relationship with money. This is not a passive exercise. It requires your full presence, your courage, and your willingness to be vulnerable with yourself. I encourage you to set aside at least an hour of uninterrupted time to do this. Find a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. Light a candle. Play some soft instrumental music. Create an environment that feels sacred to you. You will need a pen and at least 2 clean sheets of paper. This ritual has 3 parts: the confession, the forgiveness, and the release. Part 1, the confession on the first sheet of paper. I want you to write at the top, "My financial confessions." Now, I want you to write down every single financial mistake, failure, and regret you can think of. This is the time to be brutally honest with yourself, but from a place of loving awareness, not self-flagellation. You are simply taking inventory. What are the things you feel shame or guilt about? Did you rack up credit card debt in your 20s? Write it down. Did you make a bad investment and lose money? Write it down. Do you feel shame for not earning as much as your peers or family members expect you to? Write it down. Have you ever been dishonest about money, either with others or yourself? Write it down. Do you feel guilty for spending money on yourself? Write it down. Do you feel shame for secret debts you've hidden from a partner? Write it down. Do you feel regret for opportunities you were too afraid to take? Write it down. Hold nothing back. Pour every ounce of financial shame, guilt, regret, and fear onto this piece of paper. Let the paper be the container for all of it. This is not about blaming yourself. It is about acknowledging the burden you have been carrying. For many of you, this may be the first time you have ever seen all of these shadows written down in one place. It can be an intense and emotional experience. Allow whatever feelings come up to move through you. If you need to cry, cry. This is a cleansing. You are lancing a wound to let the poison out. Take your time with this. Fill the page. Keep writing until you feel empty, until you feel you have nothing left to confess. Part 2, the forgiveness. Now take a moment. Put your pen down. Take a few deep breaths. Look at the list you have created. See it not as a list of your failings, but as a list of your lessons. See the person who made those decisions not as a failure, but as someone who was doing the absolute best they could with the knowledge, awareness, and emotional resources they had at the time. That person was you, and they deserve your compassion. I remember the first time I did this myself. I had a long list of foolish investments from my early years, driven by ego and a desire for quick gains. For years, I carried the shame of that, and it made me timid and fearful in my future financial decisions. Seeing it all on paper, I didn't feel judgment. I felt a wave of compassion for that younger version of myself who was so desperate for validation. I saw his fear, his insecurity, and for the first time I was able to forgive him. Now, on the second sheet of paper, right at the top, my forgiveness ledger. You are now going to formally forgive yourself for every single item on your confession list. You will do this by transforming each confession into a statement of forgiveness. For example, if you wrote, "I feel so much shame for the $10,000 in credit card debt I accumulated," you will write on your new sheet, "I forgive myself completely and unconditionally for accumulating $10,000 in credit card debt. I was learning how to navigate my emotions and finances, and I now release all shame and guilt associated with this experience." If you wrote, "I regret not investing in that company when I had the chance," you will write, "I forgive myself completely and unconditionally for not taking that investment opportunity. I was operating from a place of fear, and I now release all regret and self-blame. I trust that new and better opportunities are always flowing to me." Go through your entire confession list, one by one, and write a corresponding statement of forgiveness on your new ledger. Do not rush this. As you write each statement, try to truly feel the emotion of forgiveness in your body. Feel the release. Feel the lightness. This is the alchemical process in action. You are taking the dense, heavy energy of shame and transmuting it into the light, expansive energy of compassion. Part 3, the release. Once you have completed your forgiveness ledger, you will have 2 pieces of paper in front of you. The first holds the poison. The second holds the antidote. Now take the first sheet of paper, your financial confessions. Read it over one last time. As you do, say aloud, "I honor these lessons. I thank them for the wisdom they have brought me. and now I release them forever, then you must physically destroy this piece of paper. The most powerful way to do this is to safely burn it. Fire is a powerful symbol of purification and transformation. As you watch the paper turn to ash, visualize all of the shame, guilt, and regret dissolving from your energy field. Feel the weight lifting from you? Please do this with extreme caution, using a fireproof container and having water nearby. If you cannot safely burn it, you can also tear it into the smallest possible pieces and throw it away, or even bury it in the earth. The key is the physical act of destruction. You are sending a powerful symbolic message to your subconscious mind. This story is over. Now, take your second sheet of paper, the forgiveness ledger. This is your new truth. This is your charter of freedom. Read it aloud, slowly and with conviction. Let the words wash over you. This is not a list of things you hope to believe. This is a list of things you are choosing to believe right now. Keep this forgiveness ledger somewhere safe. Read it every day for the next week. Read it whenever you feel old patterns of guilt or shame creeping back in. Use it as an anchor to remind you of the new relationship you have chosen to have with your past and with money. This ritual is a line in the sand. It is a declaration that you will no longer be a prisoner of your past. You are cleansing the vessel so that it can be filled with something new. Now that we have released the poison of the past, we must fill ourselves with the truth of our inherent worthiness. In the next chapter, we will do just that, with a powerful meditation designed to help you not just think, but truly embody your deservingness. Chapter 6, The Mirror of Worth, a meditation to embody your deservingness. Releasing the past is a monumental step, but the space that has been cleared must be filled with a new, higher vibration. It is not enough to stop believing we are unworthy. We must actively cultivate the deep, cellular knowing of our infinite worth. This is not an intellectual exercise. It is an embodied practice. The intellect can grasp the concept of worthiness, but the body holds the score. The body is where the subconscious mind lives. Years of feeling not good enough create a physical posture of unworthiness. Slumped shoulders, a constricted chest, shallow breathing. To truly transform, we must communicate our new identity of worthiness directly to the body. We must feel it in our very cells. This is the purpose of the meditation I am about to guide you through. I call it the mirror of worth. It is a practice designed to help you bypass the critical mind and experience your own divine essence directly. It is a way to look into the energetic mirror and see not the flawed personality you think you are, but the perfect, radiant being you truly are. Like the forgiveness ledger, I ask you to approach this not as a task to be completed, but as a sacred act of self-love. Find a comfortable and quiet place where you can sit undisturbed for 10 to 15 minutes. You can sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor or on a cushion on the ground. The most important thing is that your spine is straight but not rigid, allowing energy to flow freely. Let's begin. The narrator's voice should slow down, becoming even calmer and more soothing. Close your eyes gently and bring your awareness to your breath. Don't try to change it or control it. Simply notice it. Notice the sensation of the air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs, and the gentle release as you exhale. With each breath, feel your body beginning to relax. Release any tension you might be holding in your jaw. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Allow your hands to rest softly in your lap. Just for these next few moments, give yourself permission to let go of all the doing, all the planning, all the worrying. Your only task right now is to be here, to be present with yourself in this moment. Now I want you to bring your attention to the center of your chest, to the area of your heart. Imagine in this space a small, warm, golden light. It might be just a tiny spark at first. That's perfectly fine. Don't force it. Just gently hold your attention there. As you continue to breathe, imagine that each in-breath is like a soft breeze, fanning this golden spark. With each breath, the light grows a little brighter, a little warmer. a little larger. See it expanding from the center of your chest, filling your entire torso with its gentle, loving radiance. Feel the warmth spreading down into your belly, up into your shoulders, down your arms to your fingertips. Feel it flowing down your legs to the soles of your feet, and up through your neck and into your head. You are now sitting in a beautiful sphere of your own golden light. This is the light of your true essence. This is the light of your soul. It is pure, unconditional love. It is pure worthiness. It has never been damaged. It has never been diminished. It has always been here, waiting for your attention. Now within this golden light, I want you to call to mind an image of yourself. Not the self you see in the physical mirror, but the self that is made of this light. Your higher self, your divine self. See this radiant version of you standing or floating before you. See the light pouring from them. See the look of infinite love and compassion in their eyes as they gaze upon you. This being knows your entire journey. They know every mistake you've ever made, every fear you've ever felt, every doubt you've ever had. And they love you, not in spite of these things, but because of them. They see your struggles as badges of courage. Now I want you to ask this radiant being, your true self, a question. Silently in your mind ask, please show me my true worth, and then just be still. Be open and receive. Don't look for an answer in words. Look for it in feeling. This being is now going to send you a wave of energy. It is the feeling of pure, unconditional worthiness. It is the feeling of being loved beyond measure, just for existing. Allow yourself to receive this feeling. Breathe it in. Let it permeate every cell in your body. It might feel like warmth, like tingling, like a wave of emotion, like a deep sense of peace. There is no right or wrong way to experience this. Just be open. If any thoughts of unworthiness arise, I can't feel it. I'm not doing it right. I don't deserve this. Just notice them and let them be washed away by the golden light. They are just old clouds passing through the eternal sky of your being. Let them go. Return your focus to receiving the feeling of love from your higher self. You are worthy, not because of what you do or what you have or what you achieve. You are worthy because you are. You are a unique and irreplaceable expression of life itself, and that is enough. It has always been enough. Stay with this feeling for a few more moments. Let it saturate you. This feeling is your truth. This feeling is your new identity. This is the frequency of abundance. When you are ready, gently bring your awareness back to your physical body. Feel the chair or cushion beneath you. Hear the sounds in the room around you. Take one more deep, cleansing breath in, and as you exhale, slowly and gently open your eyes. Carry this feeling with you. This is not something you have created. It is something you have remembered. You can return to this state, to this feeling of worthiness, anytime you choose. It is your home base. The more you practice this meditation, the more this feeling of worthiness will become your default state. It will become the lens through which you see the world and the magnetic frequency that draws to you all the good that you deserve. You have cleared the debts of the past. You have reconnected with the truth of your worth. Now you are ready to take action in the world, but not action born of hustle and struggle. In our next chapter, we will explore the alchemist's approach to action, action that is inspired, aligned, and effortlessly effective. Chapter 7. The Alchemist's Path. From hustle to inspired, aligned action, we have done a tremendous amount of inner work. We have dismantled old beliefs, healed old wounds, and cultivated a new identity of worthiness. This is the foundation, but a foundation is meant to be built upon. Now we must translate this inner transformation into outer action. This is where many people on the spiritual path get stuck. They do the meditations, they say the affirmations, but they fail to act. They fall into a passive state, waiting for abundance to drop into their laps. Or they swing to the other extreme. They hear the phrase, take action, and they revert right back to the old paradigm of hustle, struggle, and force. Both are a misunderstanding of the alchemical process. The true alchemist understands that there are two distinct types of action, action from ego and action from spirit. Action from ego is what we call hustle. It's born from the consciousness of lack. It is fueled by fear, anxiety, and a desperate need to make things happen. It feels like pushing a boulder uphill. It's draining, it's stressful, and it often produces mediocre results because the energy behind it is one of contraction and force. When you hustle, you are telling the universe, I don't trust you to provide for me, so I have to do it all myself. It is an act of separation. Action from spirit is what we call inspired action. It is born from the consciousness of abundance. It is fueled by trust, joy, and a sense of creative flow. It feels like riding a powerful wave. It's energizing, it's exciting, and it produces miraculous results because the energy behind it is one of expansion and allowance. When you take inspired action, you are telling the universe, I trust you completely. I am ready to be your partner in creation. Show me the way. It is an act of co-creation. The journey to wealth is not about working harder. It is about aligning more deeply. It's about learning to listen for the subtle nudges, the intuitive hits, the quiet whispers of inspiration, and then acting on them with courage and trust, even when they don't make logical sense. So how do you tell the difference? Hustle feels heavy. Inspired action feels light. Hustle is accompanied by a sense of urgency and pressure. Inspired action is accompanied by a sense of excitement and curiosity. Hustle asks, what do I have to do? Inspired action asks, what do I get to do? Hustle depletes your energy. Inspired action multiplies it. Your primary work is to cultivate a state of being so aligned, so peaceful, and so connected that you can actually hear the whispers of inspiration when they come. This is why the meditation and forgiveness work we've done is so crucial. You cannot hear the subtle music of the universe if your mind is filled with the loud noise of fear, shame, and unworthiness. Once you have cultivated that inner quiet, inspiration will begin to show up. It rarely arrives as a fully formed, detailed plan. It's usually much more subtle. It might be a sudden urge to call an old friend you haven't spoken to in years. A persistent idea for a book, a product, or a business that keeps bubbling up in your mind. A feeling that you should drive a different way home, where you happen to see a for rent sign in the perfect location for your new venture. A book that seems to fall off the shelf at the library, opening to a page that contains the exact answer you've been looking for. I had a client, a graphic designer, who was struggling to find clients. He was spending hours every day sending cold emails, pure hustle. He was exhausted and getting nowhere. We worked on shifting his state. One afternoon, while meditating, he had a sudden, random idea to create a series of beautiful minimalist posters based on quotes from his favorite philosopher. It felt joyful and light. It made no logical sense in terms of getting clients. It was unproductive. But it was inspired action. He created the posters, shared them online, and didn't think much of it. A week later, he got an email from the creative director of a major tech company. She had seen the posters, loved his style, and wanted to hire him for a massive rebranding project. That 1 hour of inspired, joyful action was more powerful than 100 hours of desperate hustle. The universe is always communicating with you. It is always guiding you toward the path of least resistance, the path of greatest joy and abundance. But you have to learn to listen. And then you must be willing to act. This is where courage comes in. Inspired action will often ask you to step outside of your comfort zone. It might ask you to be vulnerable, to try something new, to risk looking foolish. Your ego will scream at you to stay safe, to stick with what you know. Your job is to thank the ego for its concern and then follow the inspiration anyway. This is a dance between being and doing, between stillness and action. Your daily practice should be to find that stillness, to connect with that inner guidance, and to ask a simple question. What is the one inspired action I can take today that would bring me joy and move me closer to my vision? Then listen. The answer might be to make that difficult phone call, or it might be to take a walk in nature, or it might be to simply rest. Trust the guidance you receive, As you practice this, you will begin to build a new kind of momentum. Not the frantic momentum of the hamster wheel, but the powerful, effortless momentum of a river flowing to the sea. You stop being the person who has to make it all happen, and you become the person through whom amazing things happen. You become a true alchemist, turning the stillness of your inner being into the gold of perfect, divinely guided outer action. Now, as we near the end of our journey together, I want to pose a question directly to you. Think back on what we've discussed so far. What is one inspired idea that has been whispering to you? One that you've been too afraid or too busy to act on? I want you to share it in the comments below. Not the whole plan, but just the spark. Start the podcast. Write the first chapter. Learn about investing. By writing it down, you are taking the first step in honoring that inspiration. Let's create a space of encouragement for one another. Next, we will take one final step deeper. We will explore the underlying physics of this entire process, looking at how these spiritual principles align with what modern science is now discovering about the very nature of reality. Chapter 8. The Resonance of Reality. Quantum Principles for a Prosperous Life. We have journeyed through the realms of mindset, emotion, and action. Now, to anchor this transformation in the deepest possible way, we will touch upon the science that underpins the magic. For what the ancient mystics knew through intuition, quantum physics is now beginning to prove through experimentation. And the core principle is this: consciousness is not a passive observer of reality. It is an active creator of it. At the subatomic level, the world is not made of solid, separate things. It is a vast, interconnected field of energy and potential. Particles do not exist in a definite location until they are observed. Until then, they exist only as a wave of probability, a field of infinite potential. It is the act of observation, the act of consciousness focusing its attention, that collapses the wave of potential into a specific, particle-based physical experience. This is not philosophy. This is the bedrock of modern physics, and its implications are staggering. It means that the world is not a fixed, objective reality that you are simply born into. It is a fluid, energetic field that is constantly responding to and being shaped by your dominant state of consciousness. You are a broadcasting tower. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold, emits a specific energetic frequency. This frequency, this vibration, is your signal to the quantum field. The quantum field, which is neutral and impartial, simply matches your signal. It receives your broadcast of "I am unworthy" and "life is a struggle," and it collapses the infinite field of potential into a physical reality that reflects unworthiness and struggle. It organizes energy to bring you the people, circumstances, and events that are a perfect vibrational match for your inner state. This is the law of attraction, stripped of all the superficial New Age jargon. It is not about wishing for a car and finding it in your driveway. It is the law of resonance. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. This is why the inner work is the only work that truly matters. When you shift your identity, when you heal your guilt, when you cultivate a feeling of worthiness, you are literally changing your vibrational frequency. You are changing the signal you are broadcasting into the field. You are becoming a different person on an energetic level, and when you change your signal, the universe has no choice but to send you a different reality. It must. It is a law of physics. It will begin to collapse the wave of potential into experiences that resonate with your new frequency of abundance, worthiness, and trust. This is where synchronicities come from. The right person calls at the right time. You stumble upon the perfect opportunity. An unexpected check arrives in the mail. These are not random accidents. This is the quantum field rearranging itself to match your new vibration. You are tuning your radio dial to the frequency of Abundance FM, and you are finally starting to hear the music that was playing all along. This also explains why inspired action is so much more powerful than hustle. When you are hustling, you are broadcasting a frequency of fear, force, and lack. Even if your actions are correct on the surface, the energy behind them is dissonant. It's like trying to play a beautiful melody on an out-of-tune piano, but when you take inspired action, you're acting from a state of alignment and trust. Your actions are imbued with the high frequency of joy and possibility. You are in resonance. Your action becomes a powerful, focused transmission that tells the quantum field, this, more of this, and the results are magnified 1,000-fold. There is one more crucial piece to this quantum puzzle, and it has to do with how we steward the energy that flows to us. Money at its core is not paper or metal. It is energy. It is a symbol of value and a medium of exchange. It is a current. The word currency itself implies flow. For energy to remain healthy and vibrant, it must flow. When you hoard money from a place of fear, you are stagnating the current. You are creating an energetic dam. This sends a signal of lack to the universe. But when you learn to become a conscious steward of this financial energy, you become a powerful conductor. What does this mean? It means you respect the energy. You manage it consciously, telling it where to go with a budget or a spending plan. You direct it with purpose, investing in things that align with your values and contribute to growth, both your own and that of others. And you allow it to flow through you with generosity. Generosity from a place of true abundance consciousness is not an act of depletion. It is an act of affirmation. Every time you give joyfully, whether it's a tip to a server, a donation to a cause you believe in, or a gift to a friend, you are making a powerful statement to the quantum field. You are saying, I have more than enough. I live in an infinite supply. I'm a channel for generosity. And the universe responds by sending more energy through the channel you have just proven yourself to be. This is the quantum model of wealth. It's a closed-loop system based on resonance. You cultivate an inner state of being, an identity of worthiness and abundance. This inner state broadcasts a powerful, coherent frequency into the quantum field. The quantum field responds by collapsing potential into circumstances, people and opportunities that match your frequency. You take inspired, aligned action on those opportunities. You consciously steward the financial energy, money that results, allowing it to flow and circulate. This stewardship reinforces your identity of abundance, making your broadcast signal even stronger, and the cycle continues, expanding and spiraling upward. This is the ultimate alchemy. You are not changing lead into gold. You are realizing you were made of gold all along. You are simply remembering how to resonate at your native frequency. You are consciously participating in the dance of creation, aligning your personal energy with the infinite, abundant energy of the cosmos. This is not just the path to wealth. It is the path to a life of profound meaning, joy, and freedom. Outro, your first step on the lifelong journey. We have reached the end of this audiobook, but we are at the very beginning of your new journey. You have been given the map, the principles, the alchemical keys. You now understand that abundance is not a prize to be won, but a state of being to be embodied. You have learned how to dissolve the spiritual guilt that has kept you stuck, and how to reconnect with the infinite worth that is your birthright. The transformation you have just experienced through listening is profound, but knowledge must be applied to become wisdom. The real work begins now, in the small choices you make every single day. So I want to issue a first step challenge to you. Your first act of embodiment. In the next 24 hours, I want you to perform one small act of abundance consciousness. It could be leaving a slightly larger tip than usual, feeling the joy of generosity. It could be spending 15 minutes doing the mirror of worth meditation, filling yourself with the feeling of deservingness. It could be taking the first tiny step on that inspired idea you've been ignoring. Choose one simple action that affirms to the universe, I am ready. My new journey has begun. Music swells slightly. End screen elements begin to appear on screen. Your journey does not end here. On the screen now you will see two paths forward. On the left is the Full Start Here, the Foundations of Abundance playlist, where you can continue your journey from the beginning and deepen your understanding of these core principles. On the right is the next step the universe has chosen for you, a video selected to expand on what you've learned today. Choose the path that resonates most. And of course, if you have not already, I warmly invite you to subscribe to our Circle of Alchemists. Our work together has just begun. This is Elias Vance reminding you the greatest wealth you will ever own is the knowledge of who you truly are.